The blue shell. One of nature's most graceful, ruthless, karmically loaded creatures. It is known by many names. Blue Justice, the Great Equalizer, Spiney's Revenge, Death and Taxes' Jerk Friend, the Liam Neeson, the 5 stages of grief in 3 seconds. Alright, I'm done. We have all found ourselves on the spiky, explosive end of one of these in our Mario Kart history. We've all shouted curses at hearing that familiar hiss. But the fact remains that the spiny blue shell makes Mario Kart a better game. So why is it in there? What does it do? Well, to start off, let's just be clear about how exactly the blue shell works. The blue shell is a homing missile. When fired, it speeds down the track, smashing through any racer in its way to the front, where it homes in on the player currently winning the race and ruins their day, causing a huge explosion that may also hit the racers in second and third if they aren't careful. Interestingly, the blue shell is only ever granted to players who are far behind, often those currently in last place. The specifics of its rules have varied a bit from game to game since its debut in Mario Kart 64, but it's a pretty safe bet that if you're in first or second or third place, you will not be getting any blue shells. At least, not in the way that you'd like. So one reason for the blue shell to exist is, obviously, to serve as a catch-up mechanism. If you're a racer trailing far behind the rest of the pack, you need more powerful items if you're going to catch up, and you especially need to keep the person in first from increasing their lead if you're even going to have a chance to win the race. At the end of the day, getting completely stomped just isn't fun. The blue shell helps to ensure that no one gets left completely in the dust without a chance to come back. But here's the really crazy thing. It's actually not fun to be uncontested way out in front in Mario Kart either. If you're just dominating, if you're far ahead of the pack, there's really nothing for you to do. You don't get to use your items, you can't interact with any of the other players, it just turns into a mediocre racing game at that point, instead of the wild, goofy kart racer we all love. Unfortunately, the whole design of the game tells you that the goal is to get way out in front. It's the objective you're given as a player. Come in first, get to the front, stay in the front, leave everybody in the dust. The objective you're given as a player drives you toward a play state that's way less interesting than most of the rest of the game, which makes the game less fun for everybody involved. So the designers had to include something to prevent this from happening. Hence, the blue shell, a weapon which, when fired, will not stop until it has exploded on the racer in first place. But adding the blue shell as just another weapon in the game introduces a new problem, because the designers are trying to build close races where the players are constantly interacting with each other. And yet, if the player in second place gets their hands on a blue shell, they could very easily use it to claim a huge lead for themselves. Which just leaves us with the same design problem we had before. This is why the item only shows up for the players who are pretty far behind in the pack. It's not just a way to help the players in the back to catch up, but also a way to have the arrival of a blue shell be just as much of a surprise to the player in second as to the player in first. Because the player in second doesn't control the timing of the blue shell, they can't take perfect advantage of it when it shows up. It often gives them a chance to pull ahead of the front runner, but it rarely gives them time to zoom ahead and disappear into the sunset. Additionally, the blast radius on the blue shell is designed so that if the first and second place racers are neck and neck, it's very likely that the second place player will either get caught in the explosion themselves or have to swerve around it, sacrificing speed for a few precious seconds and giving the rest of the racers a chance to close the gap. So now the designers have addressed one of the biggest problems with standard play. The fact that a close game is far more enjoyable for everybody involved than a game where people are way ahead or way behind. Unfortunately, in doing so, they've now optimized the game for what I guess we'll call casual players. People just looking to have an awesome night of Mario Kart with their friends. But in doing so, they sacrifice some of the game's playability for what we'll call tournament players. People who are totally committed to mastery of the game and want their superior play to be acknowledged. A group which probably makes up 5 to 10% of their player base. To this sort of player, the blue shell is especially frustrating since, as we've mentioned, it's effectively random. None of the players out in front know when it's coming, and it has a huge impact on the game. By design, the blue shell ensures that the most skilled player doesn't always win, which is actually not as big a problem as most people think, even at the tournament level, but only if the skilled player has some way to counter the randomness. I mean, a bad draw can happen in poker, and it may give you a handicap, but it doesn't guarantee a loss. But a late-game blue shell in Mario Kart absolutely can if you're not given the means to counter it. So what did the designers do to resolve that problem? Well, they gave the absolute highest level players ways to play around the blue shell. They made it avoidable under certain circumstances and gave it counterplay, but they made that counterplay very difficult to execute in order to not undo all the work they'd just done to improve casual play. The ways to avoid a blue shell vary from game to game, but they almost always require incredibly precise timing or preserving an item that you could only get when you were way back behind 6th place. Amusingly, if you don't have the items you need to deal with a blue shell and you spot one sailing towards you, one of the smartest high-level plays you can make is to slam on your brakes at the right moment to make sure the player behind you gets hit too. Or, if you do it just right, maybe you can get the other guy to pass you at just the right moment for the blue shell to lock onto him instead. Sure, it's still a suboptimal situation for the leading player, but at least it gives them some agency over the situation. They feel that by being a good player, and by playing smart, they can mitigate some of the damage the blue shell does, which is really all you have to do to make randomness more acceptable in high-level play. Before we wrap this up, let's look at the changes made by the designers in the most recent iteration, Mario Kart 8. What does it tell us about the vision and intent behind the series that in the most recent game, the designers specifically put in an item that destroys the blue shell? Truth is, it means the audience is getting more hardcore. The super horn appears rarely enough so as to not negate the fact that the blue shell creates tighter races, but it does allow tournament players a much better chance to effectively play around this element of the game. This sets up Mario Kart 8 to be a much more tournament-friendly game, implying that the design staff at Nintendo are starting to consider that group a bit more heavily as they plan out Mario Kart games. So that's it for this week. Whether you hate it or you really, really hate it, the blue shell is there because being way ahead is almost as unfun as being way behind, and that big blue explosion makes for tighter, more enjoyable races for all of us. Even if it doesn't always feel like it. Oh, that's frustrating.